Hey, are you a digital nomad, a slow traveler, or even maybe an early retiree, and you're looking for an affordable, non-Schengen place to spend some time in? Today, we're going to share what you can expect to budget for a month-long stay in the Balkan country of Macedonia. Welcome to the Nomadic Abundance Podcast, slow travel tips to help you live a more abundant life by traveling abroad. We're Joel and Michelle, and we're the Wandering Hartz. We've been slow traveling since 2019. We're actually on a mission to help you incorporate slow or even full-time travel into your work or even retirement life for a more abundant lifestyle.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the cost of living as digital nomads, part-time expats, or even if you're a full-time travel couple like ourselves who are looking to explore the beauty, the food, and soak up a little bit of the culture of a country known as North Macedonia if you look on a map, or for our Macedonian friends, it's just Macedonia. So Macedonia is a landlocked country that is located in southern Europe and outside of the Schengen area at the time of this recording. So if you're from the United States or Canada, you can stay up to 90 days visa-free out of 180.
So we actually spent a whole month living in Macedonia, specifically Ohrid and the capital city of Skopje. It was actually our first time in the country, and we really enjoyed our time there, and we will definitely be coming back at some point. We were actually staying there in the month of June, which is just kind of right on the edge of their high season, which is generally going to be kind of middle of June through the end of August. Now, of course, then before we get into the estimated costs of living as a slow traveler, obviously those are going to be a lot higher than if you're living locally or what locals pay and living there long term. So our disclaimer is that these are going to be just estimates. We're going to really kind of focus on food, accommodations, and of course like local transportation as well. So we're not going to be including any visa costs or any other kind of documentation if you're from a country that requires that. And then we're also not going to be talking about medical insurance or any other kind of common expenses either. Now, all the information that we have here is based on our actual experience itself, what we've paid and what we noticed when we were in town. And also we've gathered some information as well from like Numio and also like Nomad lists for some of the other details that we forgot to write down. And of course, your costs are going to vary depending on your personal lifestyle.
So first up, let's talk about accommodations in Macedonia. So when you're planning your month-long stay, you really want to take into consideration the size of the place that you want to rent and also the location. So renting a furnished apartment is really going to provide you more comfort than probably a hotel or hostel, especially if you're planning on staying longer term, like we usually do, which is 1 to 3 months. Um, Furnished rentals are also going to include your Wi-Fi, your electricity, and your water. So signing a year-long lease obviously is going to get you a bigger cost savings or renting an unfurnished apartment. So just, keep that in mind. In Ohrid, we found 1 bed, 1 bath apartments that range from about $300 to $600 a month. And that's all within the city center and within about a 10 to 15-minute walk to the promenade. Since Ohrid is a resort town, you can expect to pay a little bit higher prices, especially during the tourist season, which we already said usually seems to start maybe mid-June and goes through the end of August. And then also something else to keep in mind is if you're booking on Airbnb, your prices there are going to be quite a bit higher. There's just going to be a lot more fees, probably also on VRBO, Booking.com. You can also try to look on Facebook groups. That's where you're going to find your biggest cost savings. And so then in Skopje, rents we found there for a 1 bedroom, 1 bath are around $300 to $700 a month, kind of depending where you are in the city. So it's going to be a little bit higher in the capital city.
So another option is staying in a hostel, and staying in hostels could be a good opportunity, especially if you're maybe a solo traveler, or you're just looking to connect with a lot of other people who are traveling as well. And additionally, sometimes they offer complimentary food like breakfast or something like that, which could, of course, be really helpful to cut down some of your travel expenses. Now, of course, in our opinion, staying in a hostel long term is probably not the best option. It might not be the most comfortable for you. Um, we did look it up, and we found some on like Hostel World that range from anywhere from like 16 US a night for a dormitory style hostel, upwards of 33 for more of a private room that had like a shared bathroom. And that was in Ohrid. Now, as far as like in Skopje, like you can find maybe even like a hotel for like a four-star hotel for around $65 a night, all the way up to like 180 a night for like more of like a luxury hotel or whatever. Now, in Ohrid, we found kind of a similar thing was a three-star would put you somewhere around 34 US a night and 148 for like, again, more like the nicer luxury kind of place as well. Now, again, that's going to depend on what time of year. But a quick note, though, is that if you are in Macedonia, you are supposed to register at the police station within 48 hours of your arrival. And this is required for all travelers. Now, if you're staying in a hotel or a hostel or like an apartment like we did, your landlord or they're supposed to do this for you on your behalf. Um, if you are staying in more of like a private landlord, one that's maybe like you found on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, then or with a friend or that kind of thing, then you're gonna have to go do that yourself. It might be best to have them come with you to the police station to register, just to help kind of with formalities or whatever. Um, if you don't, there is apparently it is a misdemeanor, and it could put you up to a fine of like 250 euros, or even give you some trouble when you're trying to then leave the country. Although I don't know how likely that is going to be. One other note is if you are moving around from different parts of the country, like from city to city, again, if you're staying in the private places or whatever, you're going to have to re-register at each place in its police station as well.
Okay, next up is food and dining out. So, to save money during your stay in Macedonia, we would suggest shopping at some of the local markets. Those are always going to be pretty affordable. The grocery stores we found very affordable as well, especially when we compared it to the United States. We generally eat breakfast in our apartment just because it's easy, and that's another kind of way where we save money. In Ord, we did actually go out quite a bit, and it was actually still really affordable for us to dine out. So for groceries, if you kind of shop like us and you eat breakfasts and sometimes lunches, and you can expect to pay around $350 to $380 a month, or $175 or about $190 per person. So we feel that's very, very reasonable. And then eating out in restaurants, we also found very affordable for us during our month-long stay. We averaged about $20 to $23 for the two of us, and that was at a mid-range restaurant. We each usually like to have like a beer or a glass of wine, and that also includes tax and tip. If you go to some of the higher end restaurants, you can expect to pay around $30 to $50 for two people. Also, then that includes a drink and tax and tip. So fast food places, they have a lot of like burgers and like shawarma, and you can get that with a drink as well. And that seemed to run you about $6 to $15 for two people. So yeah, we did that for some of our lunches. So that was always, or that was actually really affordable for us to kind of go out for lunch.
So now let's talk about transportation. You can get around Ord and Skopje, of course, by walking, taxis, and of course, public transportation as well, like the bus system. For instance, in Skopje, you're going to need a bus card first if you're going to use the buses, and you can get that at the central bus station. And I think it's like maybe 0.45 for the card. And then each trip is going to run you about 0.6 euros each way. Now, as far as taxis and rideshares are concerned, taxis are actually pretty affordable. They should cost about €1 for like a 2 kilometer or per 2 kilometers. And then like a start fee is going to run you about $1 US or so, a little over €1. For now, one thing we did note though is if at the bus station in Skopje, You will get like swarmed with taxi drivers as soon as you get off the bus. So I always recommend don't talk to them. Don't even bother with them. If you're going to do it, just go directly to a taxi stand because you're less likely to get like overcharged or scammed or whatever. And even though we did go to the taxi stand, we had one guy wanting to charge us like €5 to go literally like 2 kilometers. So yeah, whatever. It's not a real big deal. But we just ended up walking anyways because it wasn't that far. Now, as far as those ride shares in Skopje, we found B Ride is the one that we tried using. Although we didn't have much luck with it, the driver kept canceling on us. But we've also been told one of our viewers mentioned that there's another one called Wizzy that you can also use. So you might want to check that out. Now, as far as Ohrid was concerned, we actually couldn't find any ride shares there. So if you're watching this and you know that there are ride shares or taxi apps, let us know in the comments, and that'll be very beneficial for everybody.
Another easy way to get around the city is just by walking, which is one of our favorite ways to see a new town or city that we come into. And in Ohrid and Skopje, we found it was very walkable. It's easy to get around. Ohrid is a small resort town, so yeah, you can get from one end of town to the other pretty quick. And then in Skopje, it was also very walkable. They had actually really big sidewalks that we were impressed with. And if you stay close to the bus station, we walked, what I think it was about 10 to 15 minutes into the central square. So that was pretty easy. And there's also tons of bike paths in Ohrid and Skopje, which was kind of, we were pleasantly surprised to see that. And a lot of people were just biking around the city as well. So yeah, there's a couple of free options for you. If you're finding this information helpful, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And you can also find more on our website, wanderinghartz.com, or you can sign up for our newsletter. You can scan the QR code up here on the screen, and it's full of weekly tips about living an abundant lifestyle by traveling abroad.
So now we've gone over all of the main costs of living for Macedonia. Let's get into some examples of some other costs that you're definitely going to have while you're there. First up is mobile phone and data. Local SIM cards are very affordable and also very easy to find. And of course, they're going to be probably your best bang for your buck if you're talking about the amount of data you get, as well as it can give you a local SIM card. Of course, that's only useful if you've got a phone that's unlocked. Those SIM cards are going to cost you, let's see here, I think Macedonian Telecom, as an example, is going to be about €650, and that gives you about 10 gigabytes of data. A1 in Macedonia costs you about €1.30 per gig. Now, another option, of course, is eSIMs. eSIMs are basically, they're pretty good because they're a good, secure, like encrypted, and they're very great, especially if all you need is data and you don't have to go anywhere to get them. You can just like download the app and then just charge it up on your phone. So for instance, just a couple examples, Airlo is one that is available there in Macedonia, and it's going to cost you $4.50 for 1 gig of data. You can get higher plans as well, where you get a little bit of a price break on that. Or also B&E SIM is another one, and that costs you about $2.80 per gig. In fact, actually, that's one that we used while we're in Macedonia. And if you are interested in trying them out at all, we do have some links for both of those eSIMs in the description. In fact, for the B&E SIM, we have a code you can use too. I think it's Hartz20. We'll put that on the screen, and that'll save you 20% off your first purchase with B&E SIM. So next up is internet. We found the internet speeds to be kind of hit or miss in our experience. It all depends on the provider you have. Some providers are actually quite fast and pretty stable, whereas others are basically kind of useless, in our opinion. We definitely had a lot of connectivity issues, especially at our accommodations, and that had to do with the specific internet service that they had there. We never had really great speeds with that one, and it kept going out on us all the time. And even with our mobile phones, we had some connectivity issues depending on which network that we were being connected to. Now, as far as speeds with your internet, which is important, especially if you're like us and you're working online or you're a digital nomad or something like that. You can find speeds anywhere from 5 to 100 megabytes download, and uploads we found from 1 to 35 or more. We definitely highly recommend verifying speeds with your host at your accommodations before you book. Like in our case, our accommodations were great, but the internet speed was really, really difficult. So we actually ended up having to go find other places in town, like cafes and I think a billiards club, where I basically did all of my uploading of videos and stuff.
So next up, we're going to talk about entertainment. So there's plenty to do in Ohrid and Skopje. And if you're looking for a night out, there's plenty of bars, restaurants, cafes, there's casinos, and the drinks are all going to run for beer about $2.50 to $4. And then for a glass of wine, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. Think about $2.50 to $5 for a glass of wine. And then just keep in mind in Ohrid, if you are at a restaurant that's a little bit closer to the water, you're going to pay a little bit higher prices, just kind of more of the touristy area. Drinks we found in Skopje were about the same, maybe a little bit cheaper. If you're interested in visiting some attractions or museums in Macedonia, there's a free walking tour that you can take. Just make sure that you tip your tour guide. Some of our friends actually took it and they said it was excellent. There's also a Museum of Macedonian Struggle for Independence, and that's only about $5.34 per person. There's also an archaeological museum, and that is about $6.23. So not too bad to get in. In Ohrid, you can walk around the promenade, you can wander through Old Town, which is what we really enjoy to do. The churches there are beautiful and they overlook the water, so there's plenty to keep you entertained just walking around. There's actually local festivals. There was one in Ohrid while we were there, so we kind of hung out for a little bit and watched that. And then also as a side note, there was actually a Lenny Kravitz concert that we found. They had it advertised while we were in Ohrid, and so we looked it up and it was actually quite a bit more cheaper than what you'd find in the United States. So we wish we could have been there for that.
There's also a ton of outdoor activities you can do in Macedonia as well. The country has a couple national parks that you can get to. You can take tours to those places and check them out, like some rafting, and there's even things like paragliding, lots of hiking. And now we spent the most of our time in Ohrid, and which, if you didn't know, there's a giant lake there, Lake Ohrid. So you can expect there's going to be a lot of water-based activities that you can do. There's tons of different boat tours you can take there, ones that kind of take you through some of the archaeological sites, or some that are just kind of more for fun, or just kind of going from like a beach to beach and doing some swimming. There's also fishing, and if you're interested in more like on the land-based stuff, there are of course a lot of hiking. There's a national park there, Galicia. If I'm mispronouncing that, I'm so sorry. But that is just south of Ohrid, and I think, for instance, that one is $1.78 per person to get into the park, so that could be a really good option. We did a sunset boat tour while we were in Lake Ohrid, and it was €10, and it was absolutely fabulous. We highly recommend it, and it even came with like a glass of champagne as well. You can also find a lot more activities and tours and things like that to do on sites like Get Your Guide or even Viator, and we have some links in the description if you want to check that out as well.
Before we continue on, if you're like us and you're seeking a better quality of life due to costs or safety concerns, or just a desire for more adventure or a better way of living, then we'd love for you to stop over to our sister site, which is nomadicabundance.com.
Yeah, so there we're actually creating a hub full of resources and guides, as well as some exclusive content for our members, including sharing our actual like full monthly costs, like for everything that we spend. Not just like the estimates that we provide on like this video. And that's from all of our travels, slow traveling abroad. Basically, the whole idea is to help kind of making your journey into the slow travel lifestyle a lot more smooth and enjoyable as possible.
All right, so let's get into our estimated monthly costs for Macedonia. And these are estimated based on us as nomads or slow travelers or full-time travelers. And we think that you could stay for a month for about $1,400 to $1,600 a month for two people, and that includes your short-term rent apartment, eating out about 3 to 4 times a week, groceries, and also local transportation. And that would be for higher end accommodations like booking on Airbnb, which is what we ended up doing. So we do know some friends that have booked for quite a bit less than that. So maybe just keep that in mind. And then if you're a budget traveler, you can expect to pay around 1250 to 1300, and that also depends on your lifestyle and if you're booking on more affordable accommodation platforms.
And for solo travelers out there, you can probably expect to pay somewhere in the vicinity of $800 to $1,000 or more for your time in Macedonia. Two other things that we didn't include in there, which we definitely recommend, is some form of travel medical insurance. We use Safety Wing is what we've been doing for a while, or even like a VPN like Surfshark to help kind of keep your data and stuff like that safe while you're traveling. We're affiliates for both of those. If you're interested, we have links in the below if you want to check them out.
So, based on our estimates, we think Macedonia is a really affordable, budget friendly destination, especially if you're looking for a non Schengen country
Yeah.
for slow or full time travelers like we are, if you need to get out of Schengen and to reset your time in Europe.
So we hope this gives you a really good idea of what your basic cost might be, especially if you're going to be traveling to Macedonia as a full-time traveler or even a solo traveler like us, um, especially for a month or more. So of course, everyone's budgets are different, and you can obviously spend more money or possibly even a little bit less money, especially if you're staying long-term.
So, as we wrap this video up, we just ask that you like and subscribe to our channel and also share this episode if you find it helpful. You can buy us a glass of wine as well to support our project, or you can head over to nomadicabundance.com.
However you choose to show your support, it's really greatly appreciated. It allows us to continue creating shows like this, as well as help you learn to live a more abundant life by traveling abroad. As always, you can find links to anything we talked about in the description below. And of course, if you've got some constructive comments or even some questions about full-time travel, be sure to leave them in the comments below. We do really appreciate that. We try to answer as many as we can. If you've got nothing but negative stuff to say, don't bother, because I'm just going to block you, because that doesn't help anybody watching the video. So there you go. Happy wandering.
Happy wandering.